Hello, hello. Today we are going to paint this very adorable spring wreath for St. Patrick's Day. And if you followed me at all, you know how much I love the seasons, the change of seasons, and all the different holidays and the fun things that we do. And so I just want to kind of celebrate the almost beginning of spring and St. Patrick's Day by painting this very light wreath with a clover in the middle. And so quickly, the supplies I'm going to use. First, I have my paints on the side here. I'm still using this Curate Gansai Tombi paint set that I got from Amazon. I absolutely love it. The colors are amazing and the pigments are very rich. I think this set is going to last me a long, long time. I'll put the link in the description also, and I'm probably not pronouncing it right. Curate Gansai Tombi color chart. And I have not filled out the color chart yet, but this is something that is actually a really good thing to do. To go through your paints, and you can see there's a lot of different boxes on here, but to paint the actual color on this chart so then you can easily see it. Because as you can see, even like the paints I have here, I have two greens, a very dark one, and a more lighter spring green, and then I have a dark red and a pink. And so I'm going to just use these four colors. And you can hardly even tell that the green is green just by looking at the paint palette. So it's good to always use the color chart. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and trace it using the graphite paper. And I'm not going to show you that because I have another video which explains that in detail if you need it. But I find a lot of people don't need it. Basically, you put the graphite paper waxless down and you can trace it using a stylus like this. Then I'm going to use the same paper that I was using last time in my last video. And I got this off Amazon also. And it's 100% pure cotton. And it's 140-pound weight. So it's a really great weight. And I'm kind of starting a sketchbook here. Last week we did the robin. And so this week I'm going to turn the page to a brand new page. Because I like to be able to not paint on the backs of them because I feel like I might want to tear this out and frame it or use it in some other way on a card or something. And so I really like to just keep the backs clean and empty. And I like this also, it's spiral bound, and you can see it has this scored edge so you can easily tear these pages out. All right, you're also going to want to have some paper towels on hand. The brushes I'm using are the two that I love the most. The green one is a 5 and the pink one is, I believe, a 2. They're very small brushes because I like to work with small projects so that I can finish them easily. I have a ceramic palette which I'm going to be mixing paints with. I have my water spray bottle which I've already sprayed my paints so that they're ready to go, and I might or might not use a black pen. I know I'm going to sign my work with this. Sometimes I like to outline my work, but I'm going to try using this without the outlining today and see how it looks, and then go from there whether I want to add some black to it. But I wanted to have it be a very light and airy look. And so I have also 3 jars of water. I always recommend having a lot of water on hand, and it's also good to have just like a scrap piece of the same kind of watercolor paper so you can test your colors as you're working on your project. Okay, so I've traced my image, and as you can see, the original here has a lot of detail, and so I don't bother to go ahead and trace all the flowers and everything. I just trace the main components. Mainly, this is so that your composition is balanced on the page, it's straight the way that you want it. You can always just hand draw this also, it does not have to be traced, but I always like to trace just to show you that it's totally fine to do that. Many artists do trace at least the basic outlines of their projects when they start. So a good rule of thumb is always to start with the lightest colors. So I'm going to start with this very light green. And I'm going to just put some on my palette here. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of water to this, but I'm not going to keep it really, I'm not going to darken it up or lighten it up, I mean, with water too much, because I just want to get the basics done here with the these little leaves around the edges. So I'm going to start just by tracing these lines with this lighter green. And it's kind of good to vary these a little bit. They don't have to be perfect. And I'm using my very small fine tip brush to do this. And this is another little shamrock on the side over here, so I'm just going to kind of leave that for now. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to water this down quite a bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and paint with this lighter green, this shamrock in the center. And I'm just going to try to vary it a little bit with a little bit lighter in some areas. And we do that by adding more water. And as I always say in watercolor painting, it's really all about the water and how much water you're using or not using. Okay, and I'm going to paint the stem on here so lightly. And I'm going to do this little guy over here too. Okay, now as that's drying, I'm going to rinse my brush. And I'm going to switch actually to my other brush, which is a little bit bigger. And I want to start to paint some of the leaves in this, this a little bit darker green. I'm still using the light green, but I'm gonna use the one that's not as watered down. And it's always good to just test on your paper first if you need to see how much water you have on your brush. And I think this is a good amount. Now, to do this type of wreath, what I like to do, I'm gonna move my palette out of the way and my paints. What I like to do is just kind of tilt my page and just start making the leaves like this. And this is actually just a very kind of methodical process. It's very easy to do. There's no right or wrong way. And just going around this entire circle and making these leaves. And to do this, I mean, you can make them different widths, different sizes, totally fine. Some a little lighter, some a little darker. And the way to do this too is just to kind of press down the tip so that it's a little bit more narrow at the top. Okay. So now I have a lot of the green done, at least for the time being. Okay, so now I have the basic outline of the lighter green, and it's good to vary it, have some a little bit darker, some a little bit lighter. Now I'm going to switch to this light pink and back to my very small brush. Now, the thing is, it's really good to no matter what you do when you switch colors or switch brushes, to make sure that you rinse your brush really, really well. That's why I always have 3 jars of water. I use the first one to rinse a really dirty brush, and then again the second one to make it a little cleaner, and then the third one to make it really super clean. So I'm going to take this really light color now, and I'm just going to start to paint some of these flowers, and they don't have to be perfect. It's actually better that they are not totally perfect and uniform. And I like to just kind of the same motion as the leaves. And pardon my arm, I'm probably going to be rotating again here a little bit. It's a little bit easier. And I'm just going to use the same color for right now. And I'm going to make these flowers different sizes, all in the lighter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to add the darker colors after to add more depth and more interest. But right now I'm just going to keep it very simple with this basic light pink. And I have a couple different kinds of flowers here. Now that had a little bit too much water. So see how if you end up with too much water, it's good to just take your brush, lift off that water, put it on your paper towel, and that's usually going to be able to control it so it's not going to overflow into your other areas. Now these flowers, again, like if you want to make yours more rounded, more petals, whatever you want to do. And I didn't really mention, but you know, whatever colors you want to use too. Use the colors that speak to you. If you don't like these pinks and greens, totally fine. Go ahead and use whatever you have on hand, whatever kind of paints you have. You don't have to go out and buy the stuff that I have that I'm using. I don't sell art supplies, so I just like to try different kinds and recommend the things that I find the most useful. But you can just always keep in mind that you can do whatever use whatever you have on hand and try out whatever paints you'd like to try out. Now 2 of these are more of like a rose, so I'm going to show you that in a minute. More of like a rose shape. I want to get all the other basic little flower shapes done first. Okay, and then for the rose, what we're going to do is just make the very center like a little dot. And then I'm going to get like some darker of this darker of the lighter. And the way that you do the rose is you just kind of start doing little half circles or commas, whatever you want to call them. And I am going to go back over these with some darker. So this is not completely finished yet. These roses. And again, I'm using the very small brush. Okay, so the main thing to do now is once you're done, we're almost done here with the basic, is just to kind of look at the composition and say, do I want to add any more pink anywhere? Does this look balanced to me? You can do yours different than I do. Sometimes you want to make something a little bigger, a little smaller. Maybe I want to add another little flower right here. I like to put 3s And that is a design principle, the rule of threes. So I like the way this looks now. I think it looks balanced, and now I'm going to go ahead to the next step and add more darker colors and layer. Okay, so now as long as I have the pink on my brush still, I'm just going to go ahead and take this little bit darker red, and this is a very nice pinky red, and I'm going to use the same small brush, and I'm just going to add a little detail to these flowers. Like some of them, and when you do this, make sure, like sometimes there's water on my the metal part of the brush, and so I like to try to get that off for sure. And let me see what it looks like on my scrap first. I think I'm going to make it a little bit thicker. So I want this to be very dark, like that. I'm just going to use it straight from the, I'm not going to mix it with very much water. And I'm going to start to just paint the centers of these, some of these flowers. Some of them I'm going to put small-ish. And this is the thing, when you've traced, you can just cover up, you know, the pencil marks with your paint, and you won't have anything to erase. Sometimes pencil marks bother me. Sometimes I actually like the way they look. I guess it just depends on the mood I'm in. And always when you're doing fine detail work, just have a very, very light touch, so you don't put too much paint down. And then for these roses, I'm going to kind of just do a little bit of this darker color on the inside. Insides of the flowers. Okay, I like that. Okay, so now like go around and just see if you missed any spots. Sometimes when I'm doing a circle like this, I might miss a few spots. I ended up adding one more little flower up here at the top because I just felt like it needed something a little more. So look at your composition and just see if there's anything you want to add, any details here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the shamrock that's in the middle, and I'm just going to take my brush with totally clean water, and I'm just going to add some water, just plain clean water to it. And what we're going to do here is a wet on wet technique. And so I'm going to take the darker green that I have, and I'm going to put that on my brush, and I'm going to make it kind of watery, and I'm just going to touch it here to the middle. And you can see how it's just sort of blending in with the water that I added. And I like to do this sometimes just for fun, for interest, because after all, watercolor is something that we can experiment with water, which is really unique to the paint. So I'm just gonna do that, maybe blot a little bit of it off. I'm not going to try to blend it too much because I want to add interest here. Spread a little bit of it out a little bit more, leave some areas lighter, some maybe to the edge, and the center here a bit darker. And, you know, sometimes I like to blend a lot, but on this piece, I'm going to leave this sort of with, I don't want to say hard edges, but they're a little bit harder than I usually leave. Blending just a little bit, leaving some lighter. And then I'm going to go back to my very small brush and make sure you rinse all the red off from the last. I'm going to take very dark, this very dark green straight out of the palette, and I'm going to go ahead and outline this in the darker color. And that bled a little bit, so I'm going to lift it. Blotting my brush, lifting, because I really didn't want it to do that. And this is really, again, about making sure that you have the right amount of water versus paint so that it spreads but doesn't end up bleeding into the rest of the project. Okay, now I'm going to kind of make some veins in this leaf with a darker color. Okay. And then rinsing my brush, and I would like to just blend this ever so bit so that it's not quite as hard of an edge. And I do want to also make the stem a bit darker. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of yellow. Kind of soften some of the areas, not all of it, but just in this here, these three areas. And I like that better. Okay, now what I'm going to do is take that fine tip brush again, and I'm going to go back in with the darker green. And I'm going to take that darker green into some of these leaves, just a little bit. Again, making sure there's not too much water. And this is just kind of to break up some of this green and make it look just a little bit different. To add some depth. And you might want to do it to some and not all of it. Maybe the stems. And this is meant to be just sort of loose, not anything super, super detailed. Okay, so now the thing to do is to just go look at the piece you've created and just kind of see if there's anything you want to add, anything that needs a little bit more blending, and just I added a few more loose leaves here and here and here. I just felt like it needed a little bit of something to, I don't know, make it so it's not so perfectly round. But take a look at your piece and maybe blend your shamrock a little more, whatever speaks to your heart. And this part, you just kind of use your creative intuition, and this will develop as time goes on. Just kind of say something needs to be added here. A good rule of thumb is usually less is more. And so to not add too much to make it so that it's overwhelmed. All right, so the last thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to add some little dots. And now people do this in different ways. Some people like to spatter their paint, like put a bunch of paint on their brush and then just kind of go like this and fling it, and so that it spatters paint. But for this one, I don't really feel like I want to do that. I think what I would rather do is just add a bunch of dots. So I'm going to get some paint, some pink, this light pink again, quite watered down, and I'm just going to start adding little dots just for fun. And they can be pretty much anywhere, random. And this is just something that you can do or not. You don't have to do this, but I think sometimes it's good to kind of just let go of your inhibitions and, you know, do something a little bit different. And just kind of add them wherever your heart says you need a little pink. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the lighter green that I started with at the beginning. And I'm just going to add some water. Okay, I am actually really happy with the way this turned out. I think what I'm going to do though is I am going to take my 0.5 micron Pigma pen, and I think I'm just going to add a few details. Now when you do this, you want to make absolutely sure that your work is dry. You don't want anything to be wet because it will smear. Okay, so I've tested it. My work is very dry. And I'm just going to go ahead and outline this shamrock because I feel like I really want it to stand out. I want it to be defined. Now you can leave yours. You don't have to do this step. This is called watercolor sketching and making it look almost like it was a pen and ink. Maybe just adding a slight bit of detail. to the center. And I'm going to go ahead and outline this one too. And I think I'm not going to outline all of the leaves, but I am going to add a little bit of detail, I think, with the black pen to some of them. And this is really just to kind of balance out the work. Okay, I'm happy with this. And again, to just kind of go back through everything and just add a little bit more here or there, do a little more blending, whatever speaks to your heart, whatever you think it needs. I think mine is pretty much done here. And I always say to sign your work, this is a very fine tip pen. It's a 005 micron, very fine tip that I like to use to sign my work. And I usually do it in the right-hand corner. I put my initials. I think it's really important to sign your work because that way you can keep track of your progress in your painting. So I just put my initials, and I always put the date, the year. And throughout the years, you know, I go back and I see my progress. So I hope you enjoyed this project today, this Shamrock, this spring wreath. And I would absolutely love for you to share yours with me. You can do that in our Facebook group. And so I would love for you to join my Facebook group. I will put the link in the description. And within the group, people share their work. I have all kinds of fun things in there. So if you enjoyed this project, I would love for you to join my Facebook group. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and let me know, leave me a comment, let me know how you liked this tutorial, and if you have any ideas for anything that you would like me to paint, please let me know that too. Thank you so much and have a great day. Hey, before you go, I just want to say something really important. If you're a woman who has done everything for everyone else for so many years, and you're really ready for something that's just for you, and you would love to learn how to watercolor paint, but maybe you think you're not creative, or you just don't have talent, or maybe you feel like you're just not going to measure up to other artists, please come and join my free beginner watercolor group on Facebook. And there you're going to experience safe, step-by-step guidance, and you're going to be totally supported and totally without judgment. I'm going to drop the link in the description, and I cannot wait to see you there.